Hello and welcome to Santos on Sports. As usual, alongside Chris Santos, I am Paul Santos. We're happy to be sponsored by some great sponsors here. Scotty's Pub, 202 Pleasant Street, Fall River. Citywide Glass, 3 locations to serve you. 425 State Road in Dartmouth. Additional locations in Fall River and Taunton. Lakeville Athletic Club, 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville, where you can play tennis, pickleball, and more. And John Seed, attorney at law, 156 8th Street in New Bedford. And you can go to his website at johnseedlaw.com. Chris, how are we doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Paul. It's been a little bit of action since we talked last. And Red Sox, obviously, Bruins free agency right now going on. So that's a talk. Patriots making a little minor move there as well. And then the Celtics round out with Gallinari coming in. So a lot happening in the 4 sports in the New England area. But hey, let's start with the Red Sox. And since the last time we talked, remember last Thursday, it was the heated series of a 4-game series with the Yankees, and then obviously moving on to Tampa Bay. What's your thoughts right now after that start with the Yankees splitting 2, winning the last 2, and then obviously playing Tampa Bay?
Well, the thing that was disappointing for me was, they brought that pitcher up from the minor leagues and he got banged around twice. Well, okay, you can say first time he got banged around, he was not comfortable. Second time, banged around again. So maybe the thought process was he's not quite ready yet. Doesn't mean he wouldn't be a successful big league pitcher, so he can't panic. But the night that drove me absolutely crazy was the night they put Chris Sale in there. So Chris Sale goes in there. He has that kind of shaky outing and, down in Worcester. He has that temper tantrum. He rips the TV off the wall and all that. People are thinking, oh, God, maybe he should have another start down in Worcester before he comes up to Boston. So now he's a little irritated. So now he's got something to prove. He wants to shut that down right away. That's how competitors are. So he goes out to Fenway and pitches a gem. I mean, that 5th inning, he had those guys all messed up. I mean, he was coming in with a 97-mile fastball. He had that slider working, the sinker working. He was ringing guys up and everything else. And then the Red Sox went to the bullpen, and we've talked about the bullpen many times before, you and me. They went to the bullpen. I don't think I've ever seen a lead blown as fast as that before. It took something like 3 minutes. It was like bing, 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 throw the ball away, do something stupid, another error, boom, boom. All of a sudden it's 2-1, 2-2, 3-2. The whole thing wiped out. I'm like, oh my God. Now, hey, that was only one game, but that is kind of a microcosm, right? Even if the Red Sox get good starting pitching back, Eovaldi comes back, let's say Sale comes back and he's good. That wasn't just a quick flash in the pan there. If you have a lousy bullpen that's going to blow games, it's not going to make any difference. That was a real harrowing, disappointing loss after that performance by Sale.
Yeah, and I think it's starting to show in Alex Cora's press conferences where I think he's asking in such a way to the media that we need more help. And I think he needs the help, obviously, starting right there in the bullpen. And I talked about this from the beginning. I said, if the Red Sox want to do anything, they have to do it with their pitching. And now Sale's been out since February. That rib injury, now he's back. That's how long it's taken for him to get back underway. Has a very productive Major League Baseball start that you go, wow, that's great. We got him back. Let's see what we can do with him. Obviously, yes, Eovaldi needs to come back, which now goes, let's say Sale 1, Eovaldi 2, Pivetta 3, if you get all them guys healthy. It might drop now, Paul, a couple of guys that were starters maybe into the bullpen. So maybe that will help out and then find a closer down the stretch and see how that goes. So there could be some positivity from this, knowing that with Eovaldi back, because you can only have 4 or 5 starters. So that's 2 extra guys. And then you have some of the guys who are taking the role positions and being starters now back into the bullpen. Let's see if that helps Boston. But I still think Alex Cora is looking for something during this stretch from his general manager to say, hey, pal, you better get out there and help me and get something.
Well, and then the other thing, too, there's a lot of problems with the team, right? How about the defense, right? So I'm watching the game, and there was a pop-up missed in right field. There were plays at first base that were blown. A couple of little throws, but maybe, a good first baseman, could scoop a couple of those up. You never get a scoop at first base. You've had Balback playing over there. Then one day they put him at third base, and he was shaky over there. For some reason, the first baseman, after that play was over, it's 2-2. He took the ball and threw it to the mound, and nobody had called timeout. Guy came in from third. I mean, it was one horrendous disaster after another. And I'm watching this thing, and I'm like, it looks like a little league field over here. Like the ball's being thrown around. They used to say, "Don't throw the ball away. Don't throw the ball away. Hold on to the ball." And the ball was being thrown all around to the Red Sox detriment.
Yeah, it was, and there was some tough situations there. Devers was out, and they moved Balback to third, who I believe was a natural third baseman when he was coming up. So was kind of surprised to see some of that. So how long the Bobby Balback experiment is going to continue with the Red Sox is going to be intriguing, as much as when they got out JBJ, and now people are saying, "Hey, we had Schwarber, we had Renfroe." And Schwarber's got 29 homers, and Renfroe's only got 13, and he's been injured a little bit. But it's been a lot better than what's happening with those two guys. So how much longer does that situation go on? Will be interesting to see. So, you listen to talk radios around here, and it's what do we need to do to shape this team up? Well, when you run into outs and then you cause more runs by making little league errors, obviously that's very detrimental to your team, to the coaching staff. And even Cora said, Tampa doesn't have some of their players. They're missing some of their studs, but they're playing hard and they're doing a good job. Was he being critical to the Red Sox, saying we're not playing hard and we need to shape up? I think he was. So maybe he's making a little call to them saying, "Hey, fellas, we got to step it up a little bit, because right now in this last series against Tampa, then they have not looked well defensively."
Well, as you know, if you'd like to join the discussion, there's the phone number right there at the bottom of the screen. Santos on Sports, 774-762-6234. Jump on in and talk sports with Chris and I. It's an absolute blast doing so. We love to do this and talk sports, and anybody that follows sports, you get a great joy out of doing that. The other thing, too, about the Red Sox, about John Henry's comments about how, we're building the organization from top to bottom, and he didn't come out and say it, but it didn't sound like he was going to be a buyer at the, with the trade deadline and all that. And then he made a comment about how, modern teams have to pay the nerds a lot of money to figure out all the numbers and figure out the whip and all this other stuff, So I'm thinking to myself, wow, is this a different approach? I mean, they got Chaim Bloom from Tampa Bay, and we know what his approach was. But, this is the Boston Red Sox. This isn't the Tampa Bay Rays. So you can do a lot of the stuff that the small market teams can do to be successful. But you can also go out there and spend some money too, because otherwise you're not going to win the World Series.
No, and analytics, unfortunately, has become a big part of baseball. But analytics don't take away from desire, heart, determination, the grind that you have to go through a Major League Baseball season. And sometimes that can cost you. So I think the Sox should do something. And I think it starts in the bullpen and then go from there. The risk signing of Devers, Bogarts, I think those are your two key players. You have Story, obviously, that you've signed already for a while. So to not go with those two guys and have all three of them, that's going to be really hard on the Boston Red Sox. And that's what's been going on around this area in a lot of talk shows. Are they able to go and make those commitments to those two guys? And some people say we should, and some people say we shouldn't. But I think you do, and you find a way to get those two, because I think that's the core of your group right there, and see how it goes. So it will be interesting for John Henry and his team to sit back and say, we need help and we need it now, or they don't have a shot for the wild card if they don't do something, in my estimation.
Yeah, and it's frustrating when you're watching a game, knowing that there are holes that need to be filled. And you look at a guy like Schwarber, boy, he not only was he a home run guy, but he was also kind of like a clutch kind of a guy. He tended to rise to the occasion when you needed that big hit, and he's a left-hander in the lineup and stuff like that. So it was too bad he left. I don't know, maybe he was asking for too much money, but really, the Red Sox are a little thin over there. I will say something though, Trevor Story, he's turned out to be quite a second baseman. He made some good plays. That diving play that he made the other day, almost like a Dustin Pedroia kind of a play. He can play second base. So, if we can just sign the shortstop, which they don't want to do, we'd have quite a nice infield up the middle.
Yeah, you would think at second, short, and third, that's where you want to go. But at the same time, Paul, I talked to you about this just even by text message. I talked to you about the Yankees lineup. I talked to you about there is not one guy over 285 batting average. Aaron Judge is 286. Everybody else is 270 or below. But when you're hitting 140 home runs compared to, let's say, the Red Sox, 70, and you're hitting 70 more homers, and you're finding hitting big hits, very interesting to see when you look at Red Sox players who, like 3 or 4 guys, are in the 300 in batting average. How much is average doing for you? Not a lot compared to getting your doubles, your home runs, your RBIs, which the Yankees are doing. Very impressive to what's going on with that. And you want to talk about analytics. There's analytics right there. It's not about batting average. It's about hitting the big ball and hitting at the right time. And that's what the Yankees have done. Never mind their pitching staff, which has been outstanding.
Well, we already know the nerds have kind of put the batting average to rest a little bit. They like on-base percentage. They like OPS because, they look at it like if a guy gets a triple, that's like, it takes the guy 3 singles to get the third base, if that whole thing. They want people to work walks to get on base and all this kind of stuff. And, you have the launch angles so you can hit more home runs and all this stuff. But the thing about the nerds, the fact of the matter is it works because they're crunching the numbers and they're doing all this stuff that they never did before. And what they're doing, it may be hurting the game in terms of the entertainment product, but you can make a winner following all that stuff, I guess, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, you can to a way, depending on your personnel, how you went out and got it. Now, does that mean even when we saw like the movie Moneyball and Billy Beane, he made some moves during that season to get some of them guys that he wanted analytically? Can the Red Sox do the same thing? Can they find a pitcher out there that can help their bullpen? Can they get a top closer that they need, that someone's really struggling, maybe someone else, like a Kimbrel or someone like that, to come back in and help out? I mean, I'm not sure, they'll figure it out and they'll try to get it done. But I just think if they stand pat, they're not going to go anywhere. I still think they have to try to find a way to do something to get this team back. Now, having Eovaldi, obviously getting Sale back, doing that will help that part as long as that bullpen can hold up and shape up.
All right, 774-762-6234. If you'd like to get into the discussion here on Santos on Sports. While we're talking about baseball, down in the minor leagues, they instituted a pitch clock in some of the minor leagues, And I think it's 20 seconds or something like that, or maybe 18 when nobody's on base and 20 when somebody's on base. And, the average game is about 3 hours and maybe 10 minutes or something like that. They shaved a whole half hour off the games. The games in the minor leagues that are using that clock are down to like 235 or 240. Can you imagine a baseball game, the average baseball game at 235 or 240? I mean, I think it's tremendous. I mean, get in the batter's box. I know there's a lot of, gamesmanship about, hey, I have to figure out what he's going to throw. What did he throw me last time? And Big Poppy talked about it like, hey, there's a lot more to it than what you think. You just don't go in the hit. You got to be thinking about what you're going to do. What's the count? What does he usually throw on that count? What happened last at bat? What am I going to do next at bat? But hey, in terms of the entertainment product, you got to move it along. To have an average game go down to 235 or 240 like it was, say, 30 years ago or whatever, I mean, I think it's something that you're going to see, and I'm hoping there's a way they can make it work in the major leagues.
You would think in the years coming up, they're going to make some kind of move somewhere along the line to even do better than what they're doing now. But there's sometimes, Paul, like even the rivalries, the great rivalries, even when you see that Red Sox Yankees, it's so thrilling. And, you're watching counts and it's 3-2 and 3-2 to the next guy, then 3-2 again, foul ball, foul ball, foul ball. And it looks like it's taking forever, but it's just battles. It's just a battle out there. The grind between obviously the pitcher and the hitter and how that goes on just as much. So it depends on, the situation and how the game's unfolding. I can see what you're talking about, but I can also see it from the opposite end. How those games last a little bit longer, especially when you got a great starter and you're trying to find a way to make him throw his best stuff, to keep him in the game as long as you can, to make him throw more pitches, things like that. So there's a lot of ways to think about it, but you're probably right. They want to find a way to speed this game up. So I expect more moves to come in the future.
You are right about something, though, because I told you before, a lot of times, I'm watching a movie or something like that, doing something with my wife or so forth. And I have to confess, I like to put the game on in the middle, like 4th, 5th inning or something like that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I've turned it on as late as the 7th inning. And the battles that go on between, like, say, a setup guy and a closer, and, it's a 1-run game. and the top of the order is coming up, and you got all these great players coming up. Like say against the Yankees, you're trying to hold on to a lead, and you got Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton coming up in that inning, and they're fouling the ball off, and then the pitcher's standing on the mound, and they have that close up of his face, and what's he going to throw next, and all that. I mean, that's really the best part about baseball is that slow grind. That just kind of like, you see the expression what's on the faces of everybody, and that's definitely unique to baseball.
Yeah, and remember, Paul, we had Peter Abraham on, and he talked about maybe limiting the number of relievers you have in your bullpen. And he talked about that number. So there's not a lot of that. Oh, okay, one pitch, take him out, put someone back in. Then all of a sudden he throws to one batter, gets him out. Oh, okay, let me go back and get another guy. And then you keep going back and forth. Or you got a guy who comes in, maybe he's got to face a limited amount of batters first and then see how it goes. So there might be some changes coming up in that. And he talked about it when we had him on. So a lot of things could be happening quickly in Major League Baseball and expect to be happening starting next year.
Yeah, I like a lot of the stuff they're trying to do. I mean, again, you don't want to overdo it and, like you said, speed it up too fast. But I mean, taking that half hour off the game, hey, you got to get modern because, people's attention spans are shorter. And one of the advantages to hockey and basketball is, that you're going to watch a game in 2.5 and 3 hours. The game's going to move along and it's going to be over. Well, let's switch over to the Bruins a little bit. Since we last talked, they hired a new coach, Coach Montgomery. Yep. And, I got to tell you, I liked Cassidy. You know what I mean? I liked him. I thought he brought the Bruins some good years. He kind of opened up the offense a little bit. Claude Julien was kind of like, smother him and, kind of a play. He kind of opened it up so that some of these guys like Pasternak and guys could really score some goals and all that. And he talked candidly when he was, being interviewed by the media. I kind of like that. But, maybe there's something that we don't know about him. Maybe, they say, well, he was too rough on the kids, and the kids couldn't take the fact that he was rough and all that. I'm starting to rethink it. I kind of thought that at first, but I'm starting to rethink it, because if Bergeron wasn't too happy with him, maybe he was just like, stuff that happens in the room stays in the room. He would go out and say like, well, we're playing a good game until, one of our forwards coughed up the puck at the blue line, and everybody knows it was Coyle, and everybody's like, well, Belichick never does that. Belichick never does that. Never. He would never say, this guy dropped the ball or this guy did this and that. That all stays in the room. So I'm wondering if that kind of got old. These coaches only have a shelf life for so long. And I know there are a lot of Cassidy defenders out there. And I was one of them. I liked him too. But maybe it was time to have a different approach with the kind of mix of veterans and young players that you have on the team.
Well, I think from what I've heard and what I've been hearing since the departure of Cassidy, obviously the next person coming in, and it's pretty much like you're saying, Paul, it's letting the young kids develop, letting the young kids play and get them involved and get that to the next level. And I think that's what Neely and Sweeney want from this next coach. Even though you have your veterans, it's how you adapt to these youngsters coming in, the rookies, getting them involved, getting them to play good hockey, giving them a chance to do what they want to do, where maybe Cassidy did not want that. And he wanted more of the veteran guys, keep them on the ice as much as possible. I'm not worrying about the younger guys right now. And if you can remember when we had the incident with DeBrusque and maybe a couple of other players not getting them, a much playing time and involved, I think that's what I'm getting out of what I'm hearing from Neely and Sweeney. That's what they want out of this new coach. And again, at the same time, where your personality fits all players, from the rookies to the mid guys to obviously your veterans. And I think that's what they want to gel in this new head coach compared to what Cassidy was given. That's what I'm thinking when I'm hearing Sweeney and Neely talk.
So it'd be interesting to see what he does. Does he make things a little bit tighter defensively? Because, Cassidy let the forwards get the goals and all that. And I thought that was great in the regular season. But then in the playoffs, Bruins defense, I mean, it was like 2-on-1s all the time and, stuff like that. They really had a lot of breakdowns. Not only, the defensemen, but the forwards too, coughing up the puck in the neutral zone and all that, which you cannot do in the playoffs. You can get away with a little more during the regular season. And, obviously Swayman did the best he could. I think it was a mistake to play Ullmark in those first couple of games because I think he was a little shaky. But anyway, they got a 7-game series out of it. Think how many times there were defensive breakdowns, 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s. And how many times was the puck loose on the slot and the defenseman never pushed anybody out of the way? They just kind of like loose pucks on the slot. Defensively, they would have to play much tighter to have any kind of run in the playoffs.
Well, I think they will address, obviously, every matter that they thought what they saw in last year's playoffs, from goaltending to defense to obviously offense. And they'll have this guy make his input, his impact to his game plan, to what he thinks he likes. He's coming from, St. Louis. He was with Dallas. So he's got his own background. He's got his own philosophy. And it's something I guess the Bruins organization really likes. And so we can't really say right now what that impact's going to be. And obviously, if you're not seeing them turn the puck over, then he's doing something right. Does that mean he wants his defense to be more involved in the offense? That's possible. Does he want his defense to be strictly defense only and let the forwards do their thing? Not really sure yet. This is what the understanding is. He has a philosophy. They like it. And so I'm sure Sweeney and Neely will talk about that as the season starts to progress and coming forward. But they got some other issues, obviously. The signing of Pastrnak will be a big one coming up. Right now, I believe yesterday was the first day, according to Sweeney, that he said that he could actually throw a number out toward Pastrnak and his team and say, this is what we're offering. This is what we're looking at. What are you thinking?
Boom, boom. I was on his,
Right, exactly. So, if they put out a number and, he doesn't want it, or he wants more than what the Bruins are willing to give, it gets tough because, he's like, hey, I'm a 40-goal scorer. And I got to tell you, 40-goal scorers, I don't care if he coughs the puck up in the neutral zone and makes some mistakes out there. You can tighten those things up.
Sure.
I mean, Ovechkin was kind of like that, one of the great goal scorers. And, he's on a line, the other guy's got to cover, but 40-goal scorers are so hard to come by. I mean, they just don't fall out of trees. So, and the Bruins went many years when they couldn't get it. Scoring was like a big thing. They had the most of the guys scored was 20 goals, and that was about it. So to have a real 40-goal scorer, a real sniper like that, they got to get that done.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about him not on the team next year. Just he's gone. Say Pasta's gone. Okay. And you have what you have right now. What are you sitting at and looking at to say, okay, who's my goal scorers? So you have maybe a Bergeron coming back who's 37, 38. You have Krejci that maybe you go get and come back who's like at 35. Marchand, double hip surgery. Taylor Hall, and nothing against Taylor, but not right now the Pasta goal scorer and sniper that he is. So absolutely, they're not. It's a dime a dozen. Then just go out and get a guy like that. Snipers are hard to find. So absolutely, I would try to make sure I get him back on my team.
Nothing against Glenn Murray, but we went a few years there where Glenn Murray was our best guy. And it was like, we go to the game and I'm like, oh God, we are just so short on putting the puck in the net that it's ridiculous. But anyway, shout out to Scott Borowitz. Thank you very much for watching.
Scotty.
Chris Perry as well, Pastor Perez. We have an open line here. If you want to give us a call, it's 774-762-6234. Don Silva looking in today. Thank you very much for your support. He has a comment about baseball. He says that the Yankees, even though they got that big lineup with all those Beef and Bash brothers and everything else over there, they're doing it a lot with pitching because if you look at May and June, the opponents have been scoring, 1 or 2 runs in those games.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, Cole's a stud. Cortez is now making the All-Star game. They got a great bullpen with Holmes. You get Chapman. So now let's say they go righty-lefty in that bullpen. Yeah, they're pretty solid. They got a lot of depth all through that lineup and all through the pitching staff as well. So, yeah, they're the team to beat, no doubt about it in my eyes, Paul. It's going to be interesting because if they don't go as far as people think, it's going to be a disappointing season for Yankee fans. So they better make sure that they move and get all the way to the World Series because I think it's going to be a disappointment if they fall short of that.
No question. And of course, you have the extra wild cards, and we know what can go wrong in the playoffs. You can be 20 games ahead. Ask the Mariners team that won how many games they won that year, and then they got knocked off. Once you get to the playoffs, hey, look at what happened to Tampa Bay Lightning in hockey a few years ago. Don Silver also talked about, and we talked about it too, as far as the Red Sox, all of those injuries, they have so many injuries that when you're playing against the Yankees, It's almost like you have the farm team out there, and then when you look at what the Yankees got, it's like, oh my God, this is a terrible mismatch.
Well, injuries are part of the game. I mean, look at Tampa right now. They had some injuries too. Their best player, that young kid Franco, was out, and a couple of others, and they found the way to beat the Sox. Sure, the Sox helped them out with some errors as well, but injuries is part of the game, and you hope everyone can be healthy during the season. It just doesn't work that way all the time. So you have to find a way to settle in. You have to find a way to have some bench players to come in when needed be. Like Frenchie Cordero's trying to do, and a couple of these other guys in the outfield, to try to find a way to produce runs and get wins. So right now, Sox tried, as you said, a couple of their young pitching prospects came in. Unfortunately, couldn't get the job done. So now, does that mean they're going to stay with them, or are they going to go back and say, well, Sale's coming back, Evaldi's coming back, we'll put these guys out, or do they keep the young kids and try to keep them going? It'd be interesting to see what Cora does, but I still think he needs a lot of help in that bullpen.
Yeah, no question about it. And if you'd like to join the discussion, give us a call at 774-762-6234. We're talking Red Sox and Bruins for the moment, but we're going to move on to
I can tell you this, Paul. Mr. Guarantee
yes.
Was actually at my house today.
Oh, I heard that he came to Boston for
he
the
did. He's from Chicago, and he's down in the area. And he actually stopped by my house, wanted to say hi to you, and hopefully he was trying to make it over to one of your other shows. He wasn't able to, but I don't know if he's able to give us a call. But at the same time, it was nice to see him actually in town, one of our callers right here at my house.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I saw that he was in New England. He ended up getting tickets to the Sunday night game.
He did.
You didn't think he was going to be able to get there, but then I saw his picture at the game, and I'm like, oh, it looks like he pulled it off at the last minute. He pulled one off in the ninth inning.
He made it. Yeah, he made it there with his kids, and it was a great game, obviously, to watch on a Sunday night. Talk about a late game. There was a late game as well. But glad to see even people out in Chicago coming down and making the most of it when they come back home.
Please don't ask him to guarantee anything when he
No.
comes to your house. He's on a little bit of a slump right now, but it might come back around. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Goes up and down. So if you're out there, give us a call, or any of the we had a couple of new callers last time. So if you're a new caller, jump on in. We really enjoy that. Make comments like you generally do. And we'll continue onward. We just want to finish up on the Bruins. They got that guy Zaka, 17 goals, 18 assists, pretty much. Howla had 18 goals and 21 assists, so the numbers are about the same. Mm-hmm. He's a lot younger. He's only 25 years old, but he is another center. So, rumor has it that Bergeron's coming back, and maybe even Krejci comes back. Mm-hmm. So what do they do with this guy? I mean, can they put him on the wing, or maybe they have him just in case Krejci doesn't come back? Maybe it's a little bit of an insurance policy.
Well, and Sweeney said he wants to be a top 9 forward. Okay, so we understand that he's going to be in one of the top 3 lines. He's only 25, so they think he's starting to be right in that prime right now to take the next step and the next level to get up there. Now, where you situate him, that will be interesting too. Now, Bergeron called him, welcomed him to the Bruins, which captains always do, and obviously Bergeron doing what he does best, reaching out to him and say, hey, this is what we got. This is what's coming back. So I don't know what that talk specifically was about, but nice to see, reaching out. Haller did what he had to do when he was here, mostly that third line stuff. So we'll have to wait and see who the Bruins bring back, plus where he will start with injuries to obviously Marchand. So we'll see how that moves in that category too. So too early to tell, but hopefully it's a good pickup age factor wise, and moving forward gets to that next level.
All right, we'll see what happens and see if the Bruins can improve. I mean, it's going to be an old team. And, the question is, can they compete with the Colorados, Tampa Bay, even the Rangers, young and up and coming? Your Pittsburgh Penguins is still not easy to beat, Washington Capitals. I mean, some of those teams probably aren't much better than the Bruins, but there are at least 2 or 3 that are considerably better than the Bruins and younger than the Bruins. So do you think they can put something together with Bergeron, Krejci, got the Zaka guy in there? You got the defense, of course, with Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy. The new goaltender is doing well. I mean, you add a couple pieces. There was even some rumor that maybe Torrey Krug wanted to come back. But let's say you can kind of piece things together, get a couple of defensemen in there. Is there a way that the Bruins can actually be a contender with some of the teams that are out there?
Well, all the pieces of the puzzle have to come together, and that's the signing of Pasta. That's maybe Bergeron coming back, whether Krejci comes back or not. Obviously, a healthy Marchand, a healthy McAvoy, a healthy Grzelcyk, and then you come back with obviously Swayman, the cornerstone that you need in goaltending. Now you add in the new coaching staff, the philosophy, and how that works. So there's a lot going on with Boston right now to come back together as a unit, as an organization, as a group to say, how do we compete with the teams that you just talked about and hopefully get back into the playoffs and get back to the next level. So they got a lot going on, and it starts with obviously the personnel, and then you work from there. So it's about who's going to be healthy, who's back. Is free agency over for them? Can they get more pieces? We just have to wait and see by the time that season starts and how long people are going to be out, and then what the philosophy and the new coaching style works for them. So we just have to wait and see, Paul. Real tough to determine that right now on paper.
Well, Ryan Farias is out there today, and he says the weird thing is that Zacher is still a restricted free agent after the trade, so
Yep.
they don't really have a contract in place. And without getting
Right.
too far into the weeds about that, that can get the Bruins in trouble, whereby he can end up released, and all it turns out to be is a clearing out some space on the salary cap.
Yeah, that's true too. So good pickup by Ryan there. It'll be interesting. But hopefully it's somebody that they're really interested in. I saw him play in New Jersey. He's got some talent, in the age factor. So maybe he will be a top 9 forward for the Bruins next season.
Well, Ryan can't call in today because he had, I think, some kind of wisdom teeth procedure.
Aha.
But I told him, I said, you can call in anyway because then you just sound like John Henry.
And just mumble your way along.
That's what John Henry does. Oh, we're not going to do anything. I don't know. He was talking. And let's see. We got another comment over here. Oh, yes. For those of you who are regular watchers of this broadcast, you know that my friend Chris Santos is a Baltimore Orioles fan. And we got a comment here in the comment line. The Orioles reeled off. Was it 10 in a row? They're only like two games.
I'm wearing my orange today, Paul. I got my orange on.
They're in the wild card race. How can that be? The whole American League East is in the wild card race.
The Orioles have shown up this midway through the season to, yes, win a streak. It hasn't been since, I believe, 99 was the last time that the Orioles had a 10-game winning streak. So they've put themselves in contention in a wild card, and they're doing it with a very young ball club, to tell you the honest truth. So not a big name team, but they're coming up right now and trying to put some pieces together, and they've done a good job, and they're fighting hard and beating teams that they're supposed to beat who are lower than them, obviously. So right now, let's see if they can keep it going and make it fun. But boys, that American League East with the Red Sox, Yankees, Toronto, Tampa, and even the Orioles right now, a tremendous division. And how about Toronto just firing their head coach? So a lot of things happening in that division.
Yeah, well, Don Silva says that the entire American League East is over 500. When was the last time you saw anything like that?
Yeah, I'm trying to look back. I got to research that one, but that's quite impressive as well. And so some of these other teams, especially out in the West, really struggling right now to stay with it. And so that's where the East has really been beating up those teams. And then when they play each other, that's where the Sox have really had some difficulty.
Well, after those 2 wins against the Yankees, they had a 4-game series, lost the first 2 games, but managed to win the last 2 games. So I thought that was a pretty good split with New York.
Yep.
Even though New York, they have the better talent, but the Red Sox kind of scraped one out in those last couple of games. And, we're thinking maybe there'd be something to build on. Then they go into Tampa and they're getting beat every night. Yeah. And, right after that Yankees series completed, where they won those 2 games, the Red Sox were in really great shape in the wild card. They were at the top of the wild card. There's 3 wild cards that make it, right? So they were at the top of the wild card. There was like a 4-game space between them and the bottom wild card. And now all of a sudden they're right down in the mix, like just barely able to qualify for the playoffs if it ended today. So they got to start winning these games against the American League East, or otherwise they're going to be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, and at that time, mostly the teams that are going to be in the wild card is the teams from your division. So it's not like you're looking at Detroit, Seattle, the Angels. You're kind of looking at the teams right in front of you, Tampa and Toronto. So it's right in your plate to sit there and say, if I'm going to win and I'm going to make the wild card, I got to beat my own division. It's as simple as that. And with the Orioles doing what they're doing, and I don't know if they can sustain it and keep it going, but that would be another one on their plate that they have to play them too and go out and do the job. So it's right in their own league, Paul. So they know what's right in front of them. They just got to go out and execute.
Ryan really enjoyed the same game I did. What ticks me off is that Sale had a pretty damn good first start back, but of course the bullpen and terrible feeling wasted that. We talked about that. I felt the same way. And a lot of times, I get a little some back issues here. I watch the game. I go out, lay down in bed, and I'm kind of watching the game, and all of a sudden it was like 2-0. Great pitching performance. Bing, bang, boom. It's 3-2. And all of a sudden my phone's on vibrate, and I get like, bzz, bzz. It's like everybody's like, and I'm ready to leap out of bed. What the hell just happened? I don't know. How could a lead disappear that fast? And by the way, getting back to your Baltimore Orioles, right? You're saying they're doing it on short dollars and young players.
Yeah.
Don says that Mike Trout makes more than the whole Baltimore team, and the Orioles got a better record than the Angels. How about that?
Well, it's something that we thought about when we first really started to sit back and say, what is this Orioles team all about? And they had that advantage early, and they sat back and said, okay, well, let's see who's coming in, what we can do. We're not a high-profile team. We're not paying all these big dollars. We got to go out and find some talent, and we got to do it early. Now, sit back and say, okay, this year, it seemed to pay off. Now, it's starting this year, Paul. Where's it been for the last 5 to 10? It hasn't been there. But it's a low-budget team. It really is. And, they're making the best of it. And so good for them. I'm hoping a lot of other teams can relate to this and try to get back to playing some good ball as well. So it's nice to see them back. I'm not looking anything that far ahead. I'm just going one game at a time. But nice to see a little bit of a run from this team and see if we can, do some damage down the stretch.
It's interesting, right? Talk about Mike Trout making all that money. And, baseball is the kind of sport, and really basketball is the only one that's different. But baseball, just focusing on baseball for a moment, it doesn't really make sense to open the bank for one guy. You know what I mean? I remember those Yankee teams. Now, it's going a long time back, but those Yankee teams of the late 90s, you had like Bernie Williams and Paul O'Neill. And, in fact, my brother and I used to call them the B-plus team. Everybody in the lineup is B-plus. They all hit 20 home runs. They all drive in 75 runs. They all have good fielding, good on-base percentage. It's like a whole lineup of B-plus. And you don't have to open up the bank for that one guy, because you open up the bank for that one guy, like you still need so much else to be successful. So there probably is a lot of truth to some of these analytics that say, hey, this guy's asking for too much money. You got to let him go.
Yeah, and I think that's where the game has turned in the last 10, 15 years or so, where you sit back and say, get my best bang for my buck. And what can I get out of that? Instead of paying that high dollar, I can go down a little bit in the B plus, as you say. Don't spend as much money, get a good player, and then the next position, do the same thing. The next position, do the same thing. Where one guy like Trout has all the money for those three players. So you're trying to fill in that roster with that money to execute compared to the high, big salary. So some teams can pull it off and some teams can't.
Well, the Patriots made some news this week, and I wanted to get Chris Santos' thoughts on that. They finally said bye-bye to N'Keal Harry, that first-round pick a couple of years back. And it was like, what was it? Was it a fifth round? No, seventh round pick, right? I mean, it was like way deep in the, it's about as far down the draft you can go, just to basically say, hey, this was a mistake. We're moving on. One of the worst blunders in the Bill Belichick era. And so now you're left with, an analysis of, well, who's Mac Jones going to throw to? You really don't have a lot of great players there. He's a second-year player. But here's the thing, right? I hear everybody complaining about the offense. Where's Mac Jones going to do this? What about the running game? What about the offensive line? Blah, blah. Spent all that time talking about the offense. The defense is the thing that lost them the season last year, when they couldn't, stop the other team 2 games in a row, not even forcing one punt And in the second game against Buffalo, Buffalo scored a touchdown on every possession, every single possession. I don't think it's ever been done. So, I mean, look, yeah, the offense has all kind of problems, but without a defense, I mean, the over-under on the Patriots for this coming year, 8.5. 8.5. Imagine that. With all these great teams, you got to get 10, 11 wins to have any kind of shot to get in the playoffs. And a lot of people are saying they're an 8-win team. What do you think?
Well, he was the 32nd pick in the 2019 NFL draft. And now he's experimented for the 2 years. He didn't cut it. He left for a 7th-round pick from the Chicago Bears, and off to Chicago he goes. And I just talked about this with my friend Mark, and we were talking about who came after N'Keal Harry after that draft. And you look at guys like Deebo Samuel, A.J. Brown, D.K. Metcalf, Hunter Renfrow, just to name some guys. Now, don't get me wrong. Not every pick turns out to be a tremendous player. There's going to be picks where, unfortunately, they're going to be busts. And right now, for him, he happened to be a bust for the Patriots. Now, can he rejuvenate his career with Chicago? Who knows? A different scenario. Remember, it's a different play system. Patriots system is usually a little tougher than mostly the NFL teams. They said they were a little hard on him when he dropped the ball. Then they didn't give him much playing time. So they said they were against him sometimes on that situations too. But it just didn't work out for them. And so they're going to move on from this experiment, which I can see that happening. And now you're saying, well, who else is next? Well, let's take a look at this Patriots team, Paul, and you tell me. They just had a thing yesterday on ESPN. There is not one guy on the Patriots team who's a top 10 player in any position on their team by ESPN, which means Mac Jones is not the top 10 in quarterbacks. Devontae Parker is not the top 10 in wide receivers. Judon is not a top 10 linebacker. Such and such is not a top 10 offensive lineman. Such and such is not a top 10 tight end. So they're doing this, according to ESPN, without stars, without superstars on their team. The closest one might be Mac Jones, who they say is top 15, who, what they said in their offseason, has been outstanding. Looks lean, looks cut, arm strength looks awesome, throwing the ball all over the field. So you're going to start right there. There's your superstar. That's number one. And then we work around it. Now, you got pretty good running game, Stevenson and some of them other guys with Harris, how long that's going to be. You lost Harry. See what your wide receiving core looks like. I still say Henry and Smith are two major threat targets you need to get going. Offensive line, work around that. But you've talked about it. The big threat, the defense. What defense is going to step up? Who's going to be the corner slot guy? Who's going to be the blitzing linebackers? Who's going to wreak havoc on then when you don't have, as ESPN says, top 10 player in any position? 8.5, I can see it. I could see 11. I could see 7. I can see a lot going on from this team. I can't make a prediction right now until I start to get a vibe for what this team puts on the field in week 1.
You're right, though, about, sort of like trying to figure out what these players are going to do. They're talking about simplifying the plays a little bit. Not because, hey, we're dumbing it down. They say dumbing it down. But really, you could have a play and the guy standing at the line and he's doing all kinds of like, okay, what does this mean? These plays are complicated. If you ever hear these plays in the NFL, they go on for like, it's a 2-sentence thing, right? So maybe just simplify it a little bit. And then, like the tight ends, the couple of wide receivers that played pretty well. Bourne, I thought, had a pretty good year there. So I think there's some things offensively that they could do okay. But again, that defense scares the living crap out. I'm looking at that defense. They didn't do a damn thing to make that defense any better. So what's going to happen when Josh Allen is out there, running around and you can't tackle him? Like it was so frustrating last year when Josh Allen, he just extended the play until the guy was open. I mean, they just couldn't get him.
Well, Belichick is supposed to be the one that gets the most out of his players at certain positions that other teams would say, I'm not going to take this guy. He doesn't fit our style. But when Bill drafts him and when Bill has him there and he gets him in a trade or he gets him free agency or whatever he does, usually they step up to the plate and they're in that position to make that team better. Now, yes, will that happen this year? Now having another year under his belt to know Bill's schemes, to know Bill's style of play. And can they get better at that? Well, according to them and according to what's been going on over the decades, that's where he's at his best. And usually it happens once the season continues to progress, not early. And he always, back on there and he's writing it down and he gets them to play better and makes them better throughout the season. That's what the special about Bill Belichick. Let's see if he can do it again, or is his time starting to slow down as well?
Like Herb Brooks said in the 1980 Miracle year in hockey, right? The Olympic gold medal that came out of nowhere with all the college kids. I don't want the best players. I want the right players. Well, right. But still nobody in the top 5. I mean, even if he, gets the most out of what he has and gets everybody to play a little bit beyond what their capability is that still enough to knock off some of these teams? The AFC, again, we're talking about Buffalo in the division. Miami, they lost 2 to Miami last year. The Jets have improved a little bit. So they're, you got to be looking over your shoulder at the Jets. And then you go across the AFC, still got Cincinnati. You still got, how about that Western division, with Kansas City and Denver and all that. Oh my God, that, and then even the Browns, they might be dangerous. Pittsburgh, is still kind of floating around over there. The whole AFC, you could make an argument that there's about 10 teams that the Patriots would have trouble with.
Yeah, and I was talking with Mark earlier when he was over the house, and he thinks they're like a third place team right in their own division. So they don't have some high expectations right now going along from what they've seen last year. Is it enough to hold on and get back into the playoffs? I don't see why not. I still think they can get enough production out of their offense, and I think just enough on their defense to still get them back in the playoffs. They do it at home better than a lot of teams. Can they do it on the road? And can another year under his belt of Mac Jones now come in his second year full to lead this offense and make them even better? A lot of experts say yes. So it'll be interesting to see right from the beginning how well they take to this, new coaching staff without McDaniels and the guys that they have, and a healthy team going in and stay healthy through the whole year.
Oh, you have a comment here that really those coaches that we have there, we have Beavis and Butthead who are going to be calling the plays over here. So that's probably a little strong, but, what do you think about, the coaching staff there, bringing in, of course,
Patricia and Judge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Patricia and Judge, it seems like it's in Patricia's court right now when it comes to the offense. Judge usually works with some quarterbacks. So we'll have to wait and really get that idea. But they know that New England system. They know Bill Belichick in and out. He knows them and what they can do. They've had their head coaching stints. It didn't work out for them, but that doesn't mean that they're not good coaches. And I still think they can be great assistants. And we've seen that from some guys who just don't have it at the next level, but they're still good at either being a position coach or coordinators. So I think they'll do okay, those two guys. I know people are going to call them Beavis and Butthead and Larry and Curly. And, we've heard some different things already about this, but it's still too early to tell. I think they will be productive.
All right. And I think, there was also something that you said a moment ago, familiarity with Bill Belichick in terms of those assistant coaches. What about familiarity with Bill Belichick in terms of bringing back Malcolm Butler? So now we have Malcolm Butler rather than J.C. Jackson. What do you think about that? I mean, do you think he can perform better than Jackson did? I mean, Jackson was one of the top guys in the NFL.
That one's going to be kind of tough. I mean, where Jackson's going now and where he's situated in, can he do the same thing with that team without Bill Belichick and his schemes and systems? So it'll be interesting to really see what he does on another team. Now, with Butler coming back and what he's done for them and where he was, can he get back to the system that maybe he likes and the situations they put him in to be a better player? So, again, it's about fitting your system and putting the right players in. Like you said about the Miracle team and Herb Brooks, I want the right players. Doesn't have to be the best players, but it's the right players that I need to fit my system and scheme. So maybe he is.
Right, but nobody in the top 5 in
Well,
any position on the
top
whole
10. Top 10.
oh,
Top 10, not
top
top
10.
5.
Oh,
ESPN said top 10 in any position. There's not one New England guy.
wow.
Interesting.
So we'll have to see if the scheme and playing the system and all this stuff works out. All right, if you got a comment or you'd like to call 774-762-6234. Since we were last on, the Celtics made a couple of moves. We had Brogdon already, that trade and all that, signing of Brogdon, but we really have a chance to talk about it. But I hear a lot of people saying, well, Brogdon never really was a sixth man. He was always somebody that wanted the ball in the clutch. And so when you come down the stretch, that's going to be, some issues there with Marcus Smart, and maybe he wants to be in there as a starter. What about this? Why not have Smart and Brogdon in the starting lineup, along with, Brown, Tatum, and Rob Williams up front? Horford's going to be coming in, and, in the end, guys coming off the bench can get a lot of minutes. But, Brogdon and Smart to start the game, that's not bad.
I don't mind it. I hope they do it. I hope they put him at point. They put Smart at shooting, if that's what he likes. And then obviously you have your two forwards with Brown and Tatum, and then you have Williams in the middle. Now, that's a feel-out process. Does that mean Gallinari comes in as a six-man? Could be a good one for you, coming off the bench as well. If you still got Horford, White to back up Smart and Brogdon, that could be okay too. So I think he'll throw it out there at some point, whether it's right at the beginning or he'll wait a little bit and say, well, let's try one way, let's try the other. But yeah, I can see it working out. I have no problem with that.
The ship has sailed, but how would this be for a starting lineup for the Celtics here? Brogdon and Smart.
Yep.
Rob Williams, Brown, and Durant. Trading Tatum for Durant. That's a team that could win the whole damn thing right there. I'll tell you right now. It'll never happen, but I'm just telling you, because Tatum, I don't know. I don't think he's the guy that I think he's overrated.
Well, I ain't worrying about it because it's not going to happen. Just like you said.
But how's that the starting lineup? Oh, that's a championship lineup right there.
Listen, I heard that New Jersey made an offer of White, Smart, Tatum, and a couple of first-round picks for Kevin Durant. I heard that was sent to Boston, and they laughed at it and said, "No, thank you."
Oh no, that's way too much. No, that's
and then they moved on to Phoenix and Miami and see what they can get out of them. But supposedly that's what was sent to the Boston Celtics.
Right, and if you're Brooklyn, you might be thinking, what, I'm just going to keep them. I mean, they're still a dangerous team. I mean, the Celtics won a 4-game sweep there, but the games are all close. And if you added a piece there, you can get just get that knucklehead there, in line. Hey, you might have something there.
I think the knucklehead's leaving personally. I don't think they want him. I think he's going somewhere else. I'm not saying the Lakers, but that's what they're saying.
Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, I don't see Irving back as a Brooklyn Net. I will be surprised if he's back with them.
Well, and I tried to get rid of him, and nobody wanted him because now his resume.
I don't know. I got some feeling that he will not be a Net next year.
Well, so then what happens to Durant? Durant's basically the last man standing.
Well, he's asked for a trade. He's asked for, and the Brooklyn's going to try to get the best they can for him, depending on where he goes, whether it's Phoenix, Miami, some of them places to sit back and say, okay, well, what's the best you can give us? We don't want a disgruntled player, or we don't want a guy sitting out. We're going to try to do what we can. So let's see if there's a team that really goes after him and say, hey, this guy can really put us over the top.
When you're talking about 3-4 really good players for Kevin Durant,
yep.
That's probably why there's a stalemate, because these teams are like, hey, we're not going to have you wipe out half of our roster just for that one guy. That's not, a way to have success.
No, absolutely not. And, let's not forget age too, Paul. Durant's not, some young chicken. He's got some mileage on him. He's got some wear and tear. He's been banged up. He's had some injuries. There's been a lot of things going on with him. So, if it's that must win now situation and you can grab him, okay. If it's someone you want to kind of see if I can get something out of him, I'm not really sure because I don't know how much, years he's really got left.
We got a comment here. Durant is okay, but he never stays on one team for too long.
No, it's right. He doesn't. He moves around just as much as anybody else. And, there's a lot of guys like that, they want that big prize and they want to say, hey, if I can't get it here, all right, where am I going to go get it now? And we've seen it from a lot of players. And sometimes that's today's NBA.
It's kind of an interesting time in sports right now because obviously there's only the one Red Sox team playing. Everybody else is on hiatus. So, you turn the TV on, it's like, well, the thing about baseball, there's a game every night. So just about. So a lot of times I don't even know who they're playing or whatever. And it's like, well, let's throw the Sox on. Oh, yeah, they're playing Tampa Bay tonight. Oh, yeah, they're playing the Orioles are in town. Yeah, forget about that. Oh, we watch a game, Okay, it's 3-2 in the seventh inning. Bing, bang, boom, 6-2 they lost. Okay, next night. Okay, who are they going to bring in? Robles? Oh, God, No, it does kind of feel like, in those close games, if the Red Sox have a lead, it almost feels like something bad's going to happen.
Well, you know as well as I do because you've watched just as much as I have.
Yeah.
If you keep seeing it and it keeps continuing, it's going to continue, and then that's just the rotation for them of they're not doing the job once they get to that bullpen, and so I think teams know it. They find a way to slow the game down, make the starter throw more pitches, force him out of the game, get the pen in, and then say, okay, let's go after the bullpen because they have not shown what they're capable of doing. And Robles was a perfect example. And then they had enough of him and they said, okay, you're gone. And so, look what happened the other day with Strahm when, line drive come out and hit him. Now he's down. I'm like, why is he even picking up the ball and attempting to throw it the first? Then he picks up and throws and he sails it away. Then they throw it back to the plate. That gets away. Another one comes in and I'm like, holy cow, this looks awful. And so one thing after another for them. But yeah, you're right. I think teams are realizing it and they want to get to the bullpen.
That was the old Little League thing. Don't throw the ball around. Whatever we do, don't throw the ball around. And the Red Sox ball went that way, then the ball went that way, then the ball went meanwhile. Everybody's scoring, Oh boy, that was the coach's nightmare back in the day, coaching Little League.
Yep.
Anyway, did you ever coach Little League?
No, there was actually
you would have been a great coach, I think.
Well, there was a Pony League team, and a friend of mine was actually the coach. He asked me to help him. So I did. My goal was I couldn't wait till the pitcher was pitching bad and go out to the mound and go like this and call for the righty out in center field and just give him that. That's all I wanted to do. Let me go pull him. And he used to laugh and say, okay, go pull him.
So you were like Captain Hook, right? Is that right?
Yeah, I couldn't wait to get him out. Said he just doesn't have it today. Can I go get him now? No, we're going to let him go. I says, he doesn't have it today. And then the next hit, it hits like a home run or a triple. I go, can I go get him now? And finally we went go get him. But that was way back when. But no, never got into the baseball coaching.
Yeah, helped out
my father-in-law a little bit and was like a third base coach, first base coach during he used to coach at the Spindle City Legion Baseball. So I used to help him 3 or 4 years. I did that, but that was about it.
They needed coaches and all that. So then I signed up and I eventually became a manager. And all those years of being a sportscaster, I was like, oh, this is hard, just they try to, get everybody in the game, keep everybody happy, try to, be competitive and so on and so forth. And, but I got to tell you, I had a couple of Grady Little moments. I went out to the mound in the 5th or 6th inning with, my ace pitcher in there who was starting to fade. But then I was like, should I really take my best pitcher out and put in somebody else, sort of like exactly like Grady Little. So I go out there, I'm like, nah, pitch the one more batter. So I go back to the dugout, said, bing! And the ball's sailing over a friendly pizza across the way over there. Mm-hmm. I said, I guess I should have taken him out, So anyway, probably the Captain Hook was probably the right approach,
Well, they always say the fresh arm is the better move because you got something that obviously, whether he gets hit or not. And if they hit him, well, they probably would have hit the same guy that was not throwing as well too. So I rather have them hit the fresh arm than hit the one that's been stale for 6 innings.
All right, well, let's take our opportunity right now to thank our
Yeah.
sponsors, John Seed, attorney at law, 156 8th Street in New Bedford. And you can check out his website at johnseedlaw.com. We have Lakeville Athletic Club, 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville, where you can play tennis, pickleball, and more. Citywide Glass, 3 locations, 425 State Road in Dartmouth, additional locations in Fall River and Taunton. And Scotty's Pub, located at 202 Pleasant Street in Fall River. Thank you so much for supporting Santos on Sports. All right, we covered a lot today. We covered all 4 teams. That's really good. I like it when we can kind of cover everything, because actually, even though 3 of the teams aren't playing, there's a lot of jockeying and a lot of interesting things happening with some of those teams.
No, absolutely. And, and that's what makes New England sports a lot of fun, when you have all those teams that you can talk about. And when I leave here, I'm going to head up to Scotty's Pub and take a look up over there, have some dinner, and then kind of check out the facility, Paul. Maybe we can do something there coming up in the fall for a little football talk, and especially with the Patriots, and hopefully maybe get some special guests by that time too.
Yeah, I'd love to. That'd be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to that.
Looking forward to it.
All right. So for my partner, Chris Santos, I'm Paul Santos. Thank you for looking into Santos on Sports, and we'll catch you next week. Have a great week.